what go-to-market channels work and what you should be investing in if you are a 0 to 1 ARR founder, and key milestones you should be shooting for with the go-to-market channel mix. What you should be doing is very different at 10 million than what you should be doing at 1 million. We're going to tell you what works at each stage.
Top 3 for under $1 million ARR: LinkedIn, warm outbound, and founder brand activity. It's this, you just don't have a ton of money to reach an audience. On LinkedIn, you can find your audience, you can connect with them, you can send them emails, you can do posting. I think AI search is starting to become one of those things that's moving from the bottom left to the top right, as folks are starting to see much more of their high intent traffic come in through ChatGPT in particular. Just because you're not an expert in a topic like sales or marketing doesn't mean you can outsource it early. It means you need to learn it, build a V1 process, and then bring in someone that can scale that.
Hiring someone thinking that they're going to figure something out for you, you will almost certainly end up letting them go.
Welcome back to the show. If you spend any time on Twitter, maybe even LinkedIn, YouTube, you might think that if you're not at 100 million ARR in 6 months, you might as well give up. But our guest today has data to prove that that narrative is a lie. Our guest today is here to dispel that myth and ground us all with a realistic growth narrative and tell us exactly what is working today for early stage founders. Today's guest, the founder of Growth Unhinged, Kyle Poyar. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
We are pumped that you're here. And Adam, if the audience sticks around till the end, through the full hour, what is it that they will learn?
If you stick around, you're going to learn what go-to-market channels work and what you should be investing in if you are a 0 to 1 ARR founder, and key milestones you should be shooting for with the go-to-market channel mix. What you should be doing is very different at 10 million than what you should be doing at 1 million. We're going to tell you what works at each stage. And point number 3 is where your startup stacks up against the entire world of SaaS companies in terms of revenue and the time to get there. And we're going to highlight the misleading hype about all these AI companies getting to $100 million in 1 month that, let's be honest, makes us all feel like crap about ourselves.
Kyle, before we started, we were talking about different channels, basically how like different stages of companies are more fit for certain channels. So we want to know what go-to-market channels work and where you should be investing if you are a 0 to 1 in that $0 to $1 million ARR phase.
Well, before I show the data, I would love to see people comment on what they expect it to be. And for context, I've surveyed about 200 founders and go-to-market leaders at companies that were about a third sub $1 million ARR, a third 1 to 10, a third greater than 10, right? And so what do you think are the top 3 go-to-market channels for the under 1 million ARR businesses? Someone thinks LinkedIn, and I think a lot of other people are quiet.
Reddit, Instagram.
Interesting. All right.
Cold calling, cold email, LinkedIn, says George.
Yeah, founder-led email. Depends on market and deal size. Zach, I cannot fault you there. That is definitely a factor there.
Cold Tom email, Norwood, SEO.
Personal network. I like that.
Yeah, Brian, the personal network, the association conference specific. You know, I found conferences to be incredibly hard until we got to like 5 million. Just brutal. You know, I don't know whether it's like a self-confidence problem, you know, like we're just starting out or whatever, but man, it just felt like once we had a certain amount of traction, conferences were like night and day easier.
All right. Well, I'll start to reveal what the data shows so far. What the data shows here, so these are, again, top 3 essentially go-to-market channels. Called them actions because sometimes it's, channels get confusing. Top 3 for under $1 million ARR, LinkedIn, warm outbound, and founder brand activity. On the 1 to 10, it's warm outbound, LinkedIn, and then intent-based outbound. And then over 10 million ARR, Adam, you're right. Large conferences get a heck of a lot easier. And then SEO and paid ads round out the top 3.
Man, and I look at this paid ads thing and I'm just like, do they know that it's working? You know, or is it just like last click so they think it's work? You know what I mean? Like,
I
uh,
bet a lot of it's last click, but also, when you have an established brand in the market, you have a ton of other marketing that's out in the wild, and then you put a paid ad out there. You're
yeah,
probably going to get some click through that just captures demand that you've already created for
right.
yourself.
Yeah,
And so I think a lot of it's demand capture, but at least it's better capture of the demand that's out there.
yeah, right. Does that make sense to everybody, by the way? This topic of demand creation versus demand capture. Um, I love this topic, by the way. In the personal story of why is I made this mistake that probably some other people on this call have made in 2023. Um, Long story short, for retention.com, we were all inbound. We wanted to do outbound. We hired two SDRs who were booking, let's say, 5 demos per week. And we're like, oh, this works. So if we hire 10 SDRs, they're going to be booking 25 demos per week. And much to my surprise, when we hired 10 SDRs, they only booked 5 demos per week because the lesson there is, and by the way, I think in like 2019 and 2020, it was actually pretty linear. You could just put SDRs in the seat and it would actually create demand. But now SDRs also, in my opinion, you can scale an SDR team out if you are scaling your marketing operation like twice as much, right? But they're only capturing awareness that is being created elsewhere. And if anybody does ramp an SDR operation without scaling their marketing operation twice as much, you will learn this very hard lesson that I did. You'll have to let a whole bunch
So
of people go at once.
I have seen that happen a bunch, Adam. The spreadsheet math of the
Yeah.
BDR SDR team, stopped mathing at some point. I think the modern day equivalent in 2025 is people looking at Google search and saying, "Oh, Google search is maybe still working. We're getting plenty of clicks from Google." And then you dig in, and 80% of it's branded search, where someone already knows your brand, that they're or something, a term related to your brand, and that's how they find you. And like
Yeah.
20% is non-branded. I thought my newsletter was doing well with search, and then I just found out, well, almost everyone's typing in my name or the newsletter name, and that's how they're using Google to find me. I'm not actually good at SEO. I'm just good at creating demand elsewhere that gets harvested through SEO.
Right.
Can we
Man,
talk
Uh,
about so
complicated, isn't it? It's
can we
so
talk
hard, always.
can we talk about warm outbound? I think a lot of people, when they think about outbound, immediately they go into cold, they pull a big list, they spin up, a smart lead account with like 100 inboxes and they just start blasting. And lo and behold, usually, like, statistically, that doesn't end up working. It does for some people. So here on both the 1 million, the sub 1 million and the 1 to 10 million ARR columns, we have warm outbound. So can you just tell the audience a little bit about the difference between, like, what makes it warm outbound compared to just pulling a random list of people and blasting them?
I feel like this is like being called on the spot in front of an expert. You guys have a product that allows for warm outbound, so I'm probably going to butcher it. But in my mind, so warm outbound, you're basically harvesting people that are already familiar with your brand or in your orbit. So this could be folks that land on your website or demonstrate some sort of purchase intent, and you're going to be able to reach out to them over email or over phone or chat, for example. But based on an understanding that there is some intent there, there's some level of interest that's already been established, as opposed to you just found them on a list of 1,000 companies that are just cold calling away.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think like a good example, although it may not work that well, but a very good example of this is when you see people doing this LinkedIn. I mean, I call it almost like a gimmick or a prank where it's like, I made my slides for next week, like comment sharing is caring, and I'll send you the deck, right? And then thousands of people comment sharing is caring, and then they just go and spam that list instead of that. That would be an example of it. I don't think that's like really a much more effective way would be, I'm thinking about posts that I was writing like 2 years ago about conversations I was having about Sixth Sense and how, the content consumption signal was not actually a purchase intent signal and like blah, blah, blah. By the way, PS, if you want, to close the loop on ABM and get person level identity, like, comment whatever. Okay. If a VP of marketing at a Series C B2B SaaS starts an engaging conversation about that, like that is a real targeted, opportunity to do the warm outbound that like, so those are two examples, but yeah, that is what I think people are thinking of when they're thinking warm outbound. And then the other way is just like somebody hits your website, use a website ID tool, either company level or person level, and enrich it however you're going to enrich it through Clay or whatever, and then you trigger outreach. For what it's worth, I think the reason that RB2B is left standing is the only pure play web identity software that has not gone on to do 1,000 other things in addition to it is because one website visit is not enough intent to book a demo. If you were thinking about just aggressively hitting people up, it's like a website visit's great, but they really need to, other people at the company or like a second visit or something. Like, I think the odds of booking a demo with a first-time visitor versus the odds of booking a demo with someone who's visited one or 2 or 3 times and other people have come to the site, it's like at least 20 times more of a chance that you'll book with more intent than just a lone website visitor. Which is also on here. I think intent-based outbound is like, part of it. So it's web signals part of it, but, job changes or, job positions opening up or, I don't even know what the other forms of intent people are. What's
Yeah,
between intent-based and warm outbound? There you go.
I think, those are the lines are blurring really on those, right? But, I think if I'm an intent standpoint, a lot of that's looking for these micro signals of, hey, someone has a technology that they swapped out, or you pull job post data and you see that there's an initiative that they're hiring for, they're focused on at the company. You have some reason to believe that like the time is now that they're interested in what you have to offer. So they might not be familiar with your brand or the people at your brand, but they're demonstrating intent to buy something around the problem that you solve. I think that's the distinction, but honestly, they're blurring a lot and they go hand in hand.
And I think with a lot of these too, like you want to use them as wind to put into the sails of the same ship. You want to have them all sort of work together. We did this a bit at RB2B, especially when we launched. It's like, okay, Adam has this audience on LinkedIn. Now, how can we use that audience and run other things like, sponsoring his posts that are already taking off and emailing people who have already indicated intent or landed on the site who now have brand awareness and personal awareness of Adam. So it's like they're kind of all working together in one cycle instead of being these like different siloed efforts. And I think that is when people think about their marketing that way, they usually get these reverberative effects that end up helping, as opposed to these like, okay, we're gonna have paid ads here, we're gonna have outreach there, and there's like no overlap between or like rhyme or reason to who's getting what.
It's amazing how much more advanced we've gotten over time. Back when I started in venture, it was in 2016, my firm coined the term product-led growth. But at that point, we kind of thought of self-serve and sales as like totally different funnels, and the two don't talk to each other. And then someone had this idea of, we can do like product qualified leads and product-led sales and actually maybe call into accounts that are using the product self-serve to expand them. And so I think that this, warm outbound is really building off of this notion of there's a lot of revenue opportunity to unlock from people that are already familiar with you, like what you have to do, but need that extra personal touch or that, maybe extra awareness before they're going to take action.
For sure. Yeah. Having that awareness versus like, heavy call to action based impressions are very important.
Well, I've got some other data I think could be cool to share with the crew.
Yes, please.
You game for that? All right. So
100%.
And by the way, Kyle, can I ask one question about this data? So
yeah,
it's kind of like a two-sided question. Question number one, were the respondents primarily go-to-market tech vendors or people who are, because I could imagine if your world is LinkedIn, then LinkedIn, and you're selling to people on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn would be like the number one channel for all these people responding. But the other side of the question is like, well, are more companies getting off the ground because of that dynamic than in other verticals? Because every other channel is so hard now that there is this one that works. Therefore, more of these types of companies are getting off the ground. Like, does that question make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the audience here, we're generally readers of my newsletter and then also GTM strategist newsletters. So there's collectively over 100,000 folks that we targeted with this survey. But then we focused on folks that were founders or GTM leaders at B2B technology companies. And so I think with B2B, because they're selling to other businesses as opposed to consumers, a lot of other business people are on LinkedIn. And so there's a natural like pull there. The other thing for that under 1 million ARR company is this: you just don't have a ton of money to reach an audience. And on LinkedIn, you can find your audience, you can connect with them, you can send them emails, you can do posting. It's like, it does seem like one channel, but it's actually kind of 10 channels in one.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking about that.
So it's pretty natural.
Yeah, I was thinking about LinkedIn, because I saw LinkedIn and then I saw Founder Brand. I'm like, why are those different? Well, it's because that's only one part of LinkedIn.
Exactly.
And there's other channels of Founder Brand. Yeah. And not to change the topic entirely, but like I just started making YouTube videos. Kyle, you should like look at these because it's probably a decent channel. And like literally it's been 3 weeks, but every one of them is getting twice as many views as the last one. And the audience retention is like great. So like I'm working with this guy who's basically gets it down to like an hour, and he's taking content that I've already made and he writes the script. And then he does all the edits, and then we promote it through a LinkedIn post and the newsletter. And I love video because the parasocial relationship is just completely different than with written word. Like you could sit and watch someone talk about anything, and so long as you don't adamantly disagree with them over time, you will agree with them if you watch them long enough. That's just my core thesis with video. So I think only a couple of people have really nailed this B2B thing. And I think the interesting thing about B2B with YouTube is your channel can be tiny compared to the big channels, but it's such niche content that if you have like, my last video got 1,200 views after 2 days and 350 people watched 90% of it. That's bigger than any keynote I've ever done. Right? So, and it's like, well, who's watching this? It's like, well, probably the same people who are at these keynotes as people who want to learn about how to go 0 to 1 in SaaS, which is what the video title is called. So,
well, first off, we got to get you some bigger keynotes. True.
I have not done a big keynote before.
So I agree with you in theory. And I've been trying to put more into YouTube. I have a new podcast that's like a month old. We're doing, YouTube and Apple and Spotify with it. But honestly, it's really hard to grow an audience on YouTube. I think once you start getting some traction, it does compound and the algorithm starts showing your videos to other people that look like your audience, and you can really tap into, what is the number one streaming service in the US, and not a lot of good business content on there. But it takes some real work to seed that channel. And I think that that's something that many folks under recognize, like the level of upfront investment you need to then get the flywheel turning.
And by the way, I made a post about this. I've been trying this for 2 years. And finally I met a guy who was like, the type of content that you were making is not going to grow on YouTube. And it was this. We were trying to put this show on YouTube and it was just getting 100 views or whatever. He's like, you got to make YouTube videos. It's got to be 70% solving problems of the audience you're going after, and then a 30% straight video sales letter, shameless promotion of your product. So the type of video has completely morphed that I'm excited about. And I think that's worth the audience noting also. It's like when you're ready to make the jump, it's not like any video will just work on YouTube. It like really has to be a certain structure. And, the title, thumbnail, and first 30 seconds has to be completely dialed. And then it really helps if it's actually a YouTube video, not just a show like this. So yeah. Anyway, that was like a founder brand rant.
So you heard it here first. We have Mr. Beast. Now we're going to have Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in the world of content too, whether we're talking founder-led content on LinkedIn or, YouTube stuff, like it really just comes down to like really freaking good content. And like we've worked with other people on YouTube where like it just wasn't quite there. There's a ton of videos up already, 311 videos I see on Adam's channel right now. And the last two have really started, kind of taking off. So it's just like the
and by the way,
barrier to good content is like even bigger with video and requires more investment, more time, more patience, more exploration, all of this stuff. So I just want to throw that out.
Yeah. And this is by no means taking off like my LinkedIn. To me, it's just like, okay, if this gets 10 times bigger in 24 months, and there are like thousands of people watching me for 10 minutes every week talk about, literally this is just value, right? It's like things that I've done that have worked. That will be great for top of funnel in some way. I don't think it'll be as linear as LinkedIn. LinkedIn's like, I can see the flow through to RB2B when I have like big weeks in LinkedIn, because it's just like people click, they visit my website, and I just don't view that happening here. But anyway,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, let me introduce this chart
that was
we've
a
had
brief
up.
detour, but let's go back to the topic.
So, and what folks can look at here. So I mapped out the popularity of different channels, essentially. So what percentage of folks in the survey are actually saying that they use these channels? And that's on the x-axis, horizontal. And then the y-axis is the likelihood of it actually having a big impact. So that's based on essentially the share of people that say it's one of their top performing channels versus the share that say it's one of their worst performing channels, right? So you can think of this as like anything in the top right, a lot of people do it and it works more often than it doesn't, right? So these are the tried and true things. Bottom right, a lot of people do it and they keep pounding their head against the wall because it almost never works. Top left are, still pretty niche. Not a ton of people are doing it yet, but those that are, kind of liking it quite a bit, seeing some success. And the bottom left are things that are more niche and generally don't work. And so even the people that are trying these out, the few of them, almost none of them are seeing a big impact from them. And so curious to get folks' thoughts as they react to this. But I think to me, some of the big takeaways, intimate events had the highest essentially success versus failure rate. They're a pain to organize, but if you're willing to put in the time, they're pretty tried and true. I think AI search is starting to become one of those things that's moving from the bottom left to the top right, as folks are starting to see much more of their high intent traffic come in through ChatGPT in particular. And then Reddit and AI SDRs are kind of in that, still figuring it out / very discouraged by what they're seeing stage.
Yeah, and there's a ton of interest on Reddit. Like it is, I think we all see how much like AI recommends Reddit. So I saw some meme recently. It was about like, it's basically like we have the biggest breakthrough in computer science with LLMs, and it's just pulling up someone's comment on Reddit from 8 years ago. It's like kind of what's going on a little bit. Obviously, that's a satirical over exaggeration, but like, Reddit, what's interesting, it's an anonymous platform where people, first of all, you have all of your categories subdivided. All of your communities are already pre-populated on there, which is amazing. And everyone's just there to help each other. At least that's the intent. And all of these moderators of the communities will ban you if you try to promote something. So it's this really big long game of value, like providing value and then subtly dropping, kind of, peanuts along the way to lead them somewhere. But it's, yeah, you can run ads on Reddit too, but it's, I get where it's like really intriguing, but really freaking hard to figure out. Could you elaborate on ecosystem marketing? Because I see that in sort of the next big thing category. I think a lot of the people in here have seen whether it's agencies or SaaS products take off within the maybe the Salesforce ecosystem or the HubSpot ecosystem, or more recently the Clay ecosystem. So could you elaborate a little bit on that, and how someone could kind of evaluate if that's a fit for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And this one is a little challenging because it is amorphous. Like your ecosystem means partnering with folks that have a shared customer, or have something very kind of that has a complementary value proposition with what you're offering. And this could be agencies, it could be other independent software vendors, it could be large platform players. There's a big variety of potential ecosystem partners. But I think for folks that find these opportunities, it can just be so much more efficient to essentially ride the coattails of someone who already has an audience, who already has a strong relationship with the people that you're trying to target. And if your product adds value to their lives or their customers' lives, it can just be a huge win to find these partnership opportunities. I tend to find it's hard to do good ecosystem marketing when you're an unproven brand. Like if you're under $1 million ARR, no one wants to partner with you. But as soon as you're starting to get to 5, 10 million ARR, especially if you're doing something innovative, it's amazing that this is the unlock that'll get you to 20 million plus.
Yeah, a great example. So retention.com's in the Shopify ecosystem, and that's just like the perfect example for exactly what you're talking about. So we got PMF, we got above 10 million ARR. We were the hottest thing in town. And then all of a sudden, basically everybody but Klaviyo, they're so far beyond any other Shopify app, were like tripping all over themselves to partner with us. And that link I dropped in, Partner Stack, once you're there, you basically connect your CRM with Partner Stack, and then let's say Tapcart, another Shopify vendor at about the same stage, connects their CRM with Partner Stack, and then you see overlapping deals. So your partner people, and by the way, this takes people. It takes, generally we found that our best motion or play was look at overlapping prospects and current customers, and then put together an intimate event with mutually beneficial people from each side. So we would bring 3 customers who they're prospects for. They'd bring 3 customers who are our prospects. We go buy them all dinner, and then everybody would have book demos at the end. That's a very simple sort of ecosystem marketing play that's enabled by this Partner Stack thing. But it takes a lot of resources, and like you said, Kyle, it generally takes traction.
Yep, absolutely. I think one thing I'll flag here, as I saw a comment on it, on the podcast side, it does feel like everyone has a podcast. I feel like it's, I even just, and as I have a podcast, it feels like everyone has this, but in reality, very few brands make it past a few episodes. I think latest stats I saw from Riverside are more than 90% of podcasts have under 10 episodes. And so for a lot of brands, they might have tried this a few years ago. They've kind of abandoned podcast efforts. And I think this is another one of those things where it actually takes a lot of work to do the production and optimize around a podcast. It seems like you're just having a great interview and putting it on Apple and Spotify. There's a lot more work than just, writing a newsletter. It's really hard to share a podcast. And so you see very, very rarely does a podcast go viral, unlike maybe a newsletter post or a LinkedIn post. And so there's just a ton of discouragement when you look at the effort it takes to do a podcast and how little you get back for it.
Yeah, you sort of have to accept no one's going to watch the first couple dozen shows. And that's a really painful realization, and how hard you're going to have to work to iterate over and over and over. And I don't even know how many episodes we're in at this point. We've probably done 100 or so at this point.
And I still think we're probably I'm being honest here. I think we're maybe 20% of the way there to
I agree.
Actually getting this show that you're listening to right now to something that is fully dialed. We're fully dialed on how we're getting people here. We're fully dialed on sort of what the promise is for the show and what people think they're showing up to get, right? There's a guest promo aspect that we're nowhere on, right? This could easily be a list building opportunity for both sides, and we're just not good at marketing that. So and this is for a live webinar, which is actually different than a podcast. But all of that is, yeah, like you said, there's just like a bunch more work with less clear immediate return in a podcast. Now,
Yep. And I think what people don't realize why there seems to be so many of these is if you're a creator and you make money on ads, you can charge a lot of money for a podcast ad slot. Even if you've got 1,000, 1,500 listens per episode, that's a pretty monetizable ad slot that people will pay a lot more for than even advertising in a, 30, 40,000 audience newsletter. And so I think part of the reason why you see so much like discussion about that is that the eyeballs, or essentially the ears on a podcast, are worth a lot to outside folks.
And can I ask you a technical question? How do you see listens on a podcast? How do you monitor that?
So I've got a guy that does it for me.
Do you know what he does though? Like what is
I have not gone into the details of it. I think with a lot of podcasts, you can get data from platforms like YouTube on actual completeness of the listen, not just plays, but complete plays. I think for a lot of the platforms like an Apple or a Spotify, you're really just getting like one basic stream number that doesn't really give you that much granularity into how you're doing. Yeah. And so the analytics are pretty poor on podcasts because you're relying on a bunch of different people to tell you.
Got it. Okay. I want to give the audience a treat. We did a mug drop a couple weeks ago. We're going to do an RB2B swag drop, guys. On this link, if you're in the US, and the US only, unfortunately, because it costs us $200 per item to ship overseas, click on that link, put in the code RB2B. There are 4 different swag items. 2 of them are really badass. And you can ship yourself either a hoodie, one of 2 shirts. One of the shirts actually has my face on the back, which is pretty ridiculous, but I kind of made it as a joke. Or the tumbler. So audience, please click that link. Please send yourself some really cool RB2B swag. And that is the end of that little gift message. Is anybody going to send themselves swag? Let me know in the comments.
And by the way, the hoodie is like incredibly comfortable.
It's 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like oversized. Well, not too oversized. It's the right kind of hoodie. And it's not too
Whitney's sending herself swag. I don't think anybody else, it doesn't sound like anybody else is. Anyone else sending themselves swag? Kyle, this is an open thing to you too. Okay, definitely will. There we go. A few people are awake.
I at one point got someone that gave me a thank you gift for joining a webinar that was a hand-drawn picture of myself on a Yeti water bottle. And I just like cannot bring that anywhere. Like I cannot drink out of myself. You know what I mean? I will not be making swag with my own face on it. That is for sure.
Surprise, surprise, those white t-shirts with my face on the back are not really moving that fast. My father-in-law thinks it's hilarious. Nobody else does. Sweet.
All right, I want to kind of switch and let's zoom out a little bit, right? So we've been talking about kind of what channels work, what doesn't, how to attack some of these different channels, and we've had great discussion about that. So first of all, like, I know there's a lot of data that you had, written up. You had a great post about this. We reposted that yesterday. And the data is showing that like for companies to reach $1 million ARR, typically takes 2 to 5 years from initial monetization, which is like can be a little heartbreaking for us. So for a founder who's say like 3 years in, maybe they're under 500K, is there any way for them to like validate their progress or like kind of recenter themselves in terms of what they should be working on? Love your thoughts.
Yeah, this is the data in case folks are curious about it. Well, it's surprising considering how much you hear VCs talk about how you've got to hit 100 million ARR in 12 months just because Lovable did it, and how triple, double is dead, and VCs don't want to fund you if you're not growing insanely fast. I think that as much as you hear VCs talk about that, the reality for folks building is very different. And looking at the data, and this data came from ChartMogul, which is a subscription metrics platform. We studied 6,500 plus SaaS startups that have been on their platform and looked at time historically from first monetization. How long did it take for folks to hit a million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 25 million ARR? This company, ChartMogul, has been around for 10 plus years, and they have historical data on their existing customers. Although I will flag, as a subscription metrics product, their customers, are not one-to-one with the broader startup ecosystem. Like, they're probably a little bit more serious. These are more legit businesses that care about subscription metrics. But the data showed only 3.3% of SaaS startups hit a million ARR in a year from first revenue. And then about, if you give it enough time, a sizable number do get to that point, but it usually takes 2 to 5 years. And for folks that are here, I think this is quite healthy. And even if you look at some of the folks that are growing really fast right now, folks like Clay, like StackBlitz, which makes Bolt, folks like Figma, it took much longer than you might think for them to get to a million ARR, because you don't want to scale before you have product market fit and you know how to scale. That's the fastest way to light money on fire. The better way is to build with a purposeful group of early customers. Make sure your product has sticky retention, really good kind of daily active usage. There's some sharing and word of mouth that's happening, and you've tested some channels to reach that next set of customers. And then you're not sort of pouring fuel on the fire until you know those ingredients all work and you have clarity where you should pour fuel on the fire.
So, definitely, like, premature scaling can kill really like an otherwise great business that had a lot of promise. So, when we're starting out, like, business and marketing, it's really this blend between art and science. And in the beginning, it's very, very much art. And as you scale up, it becomes more scientific. You're starting to do these repeatable patterns and diving in there. So, are there like specific mistakes that you see, whether or kind of have identified, whether it's hiring, spending, marketing, that can sort of be a signal that someone can like raise an alarm over their own head that indicates that they're trying to scale too fast or too early?
Yeah, see a bunch of these. So how much time do you have? I think one of the main things is the founder trying to outsource things too early. So starting to hire a marketer before any marketing channels are figured out, or messaging is figured out for that matter. Hiring sales reps before there's a repeatable sales process that they've been through. Kind of hiring people just because you're not an expert in a topic like sales or marketing doesn't mean you can outsource it early. It means you actually need to learn it, build a V1 process, and then bring in someone that can scale that. But I find that is one of the kind of most common things that I see come up time and again. The other, and Adam mentioned this kind of before we even started recording, is that for a lot of folks, they start seeing things work and they go, let me put some money in paid ads. I'll throw money on Google ads, on my competitors. I'll put money on LinkedIn. That's one of the first things people do to try to create demand and hit some early revenue numbers. And one of the things that I think they regret the most later on.
I want to just put in my 2 cents on this hiring people too early. I'm willing to bet that every single attendee of this call has done this at some point in their career, because you just do this as a founder. It's a mistake. Doing things too early is a mistake you always make. And every once in a while, someone comes along that actually has this 0 to 1 skill. Every once in a while. I'm talking like 1 out of every 1,000 people might have it that are also willing to work for you. And that's happened to me like once or twice. Thinking about people like that, like Diana Ross, she started as an employee and became a co-founder because she has this 0 to 1. It's our co-founder. Actually, Mark at Outreach, who I got the LinkedIn in the LinkedIn war with last year, he's like one of these guys. Like, but it's such a different 0 to 1 is just so different than any other part of company growing that most people don't have that skill. And if they did, they'd probably be a founder. So It's a great warning. Like if you are hiring someone thinking that they're going to figure something out for you, you will almost certainly end up letting them go because you hired them too early. You need to at least give them something, you know.
Yeah, I think
I
the another thing that comes up a lot when I work with companies is that their product is more of an enterprise product. It requires a salesperson, and the person is a technical founder that wants to build a great product. And they start looking around. They go, "Hey, there's some freemium products out there that like a lot of people seem to be using these. If I just make my product freemium, I think I can get a lot more demand." And then they divert efforts on product to build this freemium thing. They have no, demand built up, and so they have no way of reaching people that would be targets for freemium. Any demand that they do have, they now potentially cannibalize by pushing to freemium when they maybe would have requested a demo before. But I see this happen a lot where folks think that they need a PLG offering, or they want it because they don't actually want to build a big sales team, but it doesn't fit what's working for their business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like trying to plug and play someone else's playbook just because it looks good or their success metrics were sexy or whatever it is. I also think there's this thing of like, and I'm so I mean these days I'm a consultant for 0 to 1 companies. And my big thing is like founders tend to be ambitious people, and ambitious people tend to get ahead of themselves. And a lot of the work I do, especially in the beginning with clients, is like taking a step back, going kind of pragmatically through the process, taking baby steps and making sure we're actually, not getting ahead of ourselves too quickly and immediately launching paid ads, which is what virtually everybody wants to do when I first engage with them. So that's, it just kind of ties a bow on that whole chart that you showed, Kyle, actually both of the slides. It speaks to why it's so oversaturated. There's just something about paid ads that's just like everyone wants to rip that as quickly as possible. But realistically, that's just another signal of getting ahead of yourselves if you're not already at 10 million ARR or so. Okay, so let's say we have a founder, maybe they're in year 2 of this slow phase, right? What is there like a single most valuable activity that that isn't writing code, right? That isn't actual product building, that they should be spending their time on to ensure that they eventually can get to the point where they're lifting off? Is there something in an ecosystem of an activity or a thing to be focusing on aside from product building?
I mean, the thing that to me that I start with is if we could name 100 people that would be our dream customer that are closely related to our existing customer. Like literally, who are those people? What's the company? What's the individual? What's their contact information? How do we find them? Right? Have that list of customers and measure success exclusively based on engagement with those folks. So whether they know you, whether you've talked to them, right? Work your network to get introductions to them if you can, right? Cold request them, like stalk them if you need to. I would say like starting by just getting really, really clear on a small group of people is probably the best thing that I would do. As that founder looking to scale faster. It doesn't feel fast because it's such a small audience, but if you can nail it with 100 people, you can nail it with 1,000 people or 10,000 people.
I completely agree. We talk about the Dream 100 a lot in here, and it's like you get to wrap your arms around them. 100 people, you can manually connect with all of them on LinkedIn. You can send them a manual message. Shoot, you could probably record a 30-second video introducing yourself to them. You can like really do these high intent activities. And just to be clear too, when we talk about our Dream 100, I assume it might be the same for you. We're not talking about the 100 people who you think you can get the most money from, the 100 most enterprise customers. We're talking about like this square fit people who are like almost positive they could use our solution and are kind of a good fit within kind of our current average customer. And it just allows you to create an echo chamber a little bit, wrap your arms around them, and actually, and I think another thing we say on here too a lot is in the beginning, do unscalable things. And that is, if you're immediately going to scalable things, I think that's could be another good indicator that you're going too fast of like immediately trying to scale things out. Well, cool. Kyle, dude, this has been great. Any closing remark? I mean, first of all, we want you to drop in your LinkedIn. I'll drop in your LinkedIn for you, so people can follow you. Did you say you would be dropping those slides publicly at some point too?
I will. Yeah. So this audience has gotten a preview. I've not shared this elsewhere, but the data is dropping a week from tomorrow morning on Growth Unhinged, my weekly newsletter. So you can check that out here.
Yeah. And okay, yeah, cool. You dropped that in there. Yeah, I was going to drop that in there. Kyle has an excellent newsletter. I read it and get content envy. I'll be honest.
We featured Adam at one point in the AI avatar, which was awesome.
Yeah, it is a very, very thorough piece of content, which I just feel like I write LinkedIn posts, 3,000 character limit. You just don't get to go as deep, you know.
I'm long-winded, so
yeah, you
works,
definitely spend a lot more time
thinking
thinking and writing than I give myself to do it. So that is what I'm envious of. So everybody check out that newsletter. Catherine's a religious reader of your newsletter. Thank you for putting your work.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How good does that feel when you're making a living writing and someone's actually like, you're really helping me with this? It's just a beautiful thing, you know?
That's the dream. Now I've got to find my 100 Catherines before I can scale.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's how we tie
well, you got one of them right there. So
awesome.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining. We would love to have you back in the future. Folks, subscribe to his newsletter, follow him on LinkedIn. Next week, we have Nick Weldon, founder of 5x5 Data Co-op. He is going to tell us how you can have a shitty product if you have a great offer. I'm really excited for that one. Yeah, that's going to be great.
And by the way, guys, Nick is a close friend of mine. He bootstrapped. I'm not allowed to say numbers, but he bootstrapped his company. He started it like 5 years ago. It's an enterprise SaaS sale data company. He did a private equity exit a year ago to an independently wealthy amount. He's an awesome dude. And when you talk to him about why they were successful, he's like, it's a data company. He's like, our data was not as good as ZoomInfo's, but like they were requiring people to spend 30, 40, 50, $100,000 a year with them. He's like, our customers wanted flexible pricing. They wanted flexible usage. They wanted flexibility in all these other places other than the actual strength of the product. And he's like, we just met them there. And then we started this co-op to where people didn't even have to buy data. They could give us data that we could sell elsewhere and then get data back from us. So super interesting story. I'm really pumped about talking to him about offers because if you listen to enough of my stuff, I'm like a huge fan of this like $100 million offer, Alex Hormozy style of thinking. And that's how he got there. And he has been a really successful guy at it. So I can't wait.
It's going to be great. Well, folks, we will see you next week. Have a lovely week. Thank you again, Kyle.
Thanks. This was awesome, man.
Thanks, guys.
Can't wait to have you back. Take care.